Haruto was a loser otaku whom a busty goddess took pity on and reincarnated him into an Isekai as an overpowered MC. Now he will have to hide his powers or all the baddies of the kingdom will want to taste his meat.
No. Wait.
As Haruto scrolls through Instagram one day, a bright light suddenly emanates from his phone. It turns out that a literal goddess has popped into his bleak existence to end his misery. She informs Haruto that he's won the reincarnation lottery and his hairy little butt been selected for his life in a magical world. While Haruto sits confused, the goddess hooks him up with some overpowered magical powers to make his second life interesting. However, his ambitions are surprisingly humble. He just wants a chill, quiet life where he can binge anime and play video games like a total nutcrack. Haruto begs the goddess to bless him, and suddenly his soul travels to his next body. Suddenly, he's a baby. And not just any baby, but the one with royal ding-dong. He is named Prince Charming, and he is the only child of the king and his wife, the Flash Princess. It is rumored that this dorky-looking king apparently defeated a notorious entity called the Demon King a few days ago. His new dad immediately orders a magical assessment of the baby, expecting a level 50 prodigy. The magical crystal glows brilliantly, but when the light fades, it displays a pathetic level 2. To make matters worse, the wizard adds that the prince has 0 elemental abilities, and can only use lame-sounding barrier magic. Meanwhile, the goddess who set this whole thing in motion is having a full-blown panic attack. She realizes that this world's magic measuring tools are older than Joe Biden, displaying only 2 digits. It turns out that Haruto's real level is a staggering 1002, but no one in the kingdom has any idea about this. The king and queen are horrified by this dumb baby, so in a move colder than Yo Mama's heart, they decide to fake their son's death and dump him in a forest. Since Haruto is fully conscious, he can't believe he's already slated for death by parental disappointment. Dumped and alone, he suddenly remembers the barrier magic the wizard mentioned earlier. Haruto gives it a try, and is shocked at how intuitive it is. The only limit is his imagination. However, his joyride is cut short by a giant wolf who tries to eat him alive, but its teeth can't pierce the barrier. Realizing he's safe, Haruto retaliates with a dozen small barriers, but this only makes the beast angrier. So he plans another attack, and uproots some trees, launching them towards the wolf. Even this proves meaningless, causing Haruto to escalate things dramatically. He then uses his power to rip a massive chunk of land out of the ground, hoping to end this stupid wolf's annoying life once and for all. This over-the-top display scares the wolf so badly that it starts speaking in English and surrenders like Saddam Hussein. Since Haruto is a literal baby, he learns to talk by wrapping a barrier around his throat and introduces himself. He explains how he was abandoned by his Republican parents for being stupid. However, the wolf is convinced he's the reincarnated Demon King, and accepts him as her master. She offers her life to him, but Haruto tells her to scram and not attack him again. Just as the two are arguing the terms of partnership, baby Haruto gets tired, and he weakly tells Frey he needs some milk from a gigantic titty faucet. Without missing a beat, she transforms into a stunning human girl, with no clothes in sight. This makes the little baby's banana hard, so he whips up some clothes with his magic, which makes her even hotter. She then unzips her shirt to breastfeed this little baby, which only freaks him out. However, Frey cannot produce milk without being pregnant, so she takes off her clothes and asks Haruto to perform the penetration activity. Almost immediately, Frey comes to her senses, and she apologizes to baby Haruto for being creepy. Their strange situation is interrupted by the arrival of a man named Margrave Gold. He claims to be Haruto's relative, who has come to save the abandoned child, conveniently holding a bottle of titty milk. Gold explains that he and his wife lost their own child, and he wants to give Haruto a chance at life, even though he is as dumb as a wet towel. This heartfelt plea touches Frey, and she agrees to let Haruto go with him, on the condition that she comes along as his personal attendant. Before they leave, Gold fakes Haruto's death by splashing biological liquid on the baby carrier, ensuring the royal guards never come looking for him. 9 years have passed since that incident. Haruto has been happily adopted by Margrave Gold and his wife Natalia. He lives a comfortable life, but he's still a massive, disgusting misogynist at heart. He also has a new little sister, Charlotte, who seems to absolutely despise him. Haruto is even a little jealous that Frey, who now works as a flawless attendant, gets along with Charlotte so well. Seeing him gazing at the two dancing like morons by himself, his new mom consoles him, suggesting that Charlotte is just shy around boys, and that he should try being a reliable big brother. Just the thought of trying something new induces a dramatic panic attack in his boy. During these 9 years, Haruto has been secretly mastering his barrier magic for one specific purpose, creating a perfect autonomous clone of himself. His grand plan is to have the clone pleasure him while he lies down like an absolute simp, hoping to minimize female contact. So far, he's managed to copy his appearance perfectly, but the clone can't talk or move on its own. Just then, he is interrupted by his dad, Gold, and is ordered to meet him downstairs. Gold insists that Haruto learn swordsmanship to compensate for his low mana level, which translates to his magical abilities. Haruto is terrified of getting hurt, as he is fully aware of his father's immense strength, so uses his barrier magic to protect himself and launches towards his father at impossible speed. Gold is stunned because such movements should not be possible for anyone below level 30. Haruto himself remains clueless about his true power. He'd previously built a 3-digit measuring device, but it still showed level 2, so he's just accepted his fate as a magical weakling with a weirdly useful barrier skill. Unbeknownst to them both, Charlotte is curiously watching their training session from a distance like a CIA agent. Later that night, Gold discusses the day's events with his wife Natalia. He can't make sense of Haruto's superhuman physical abilities. He floats a wild theory. Haruto might be the reincarnation of the infamous Demon Lord, the offspring of a human and a demon, as explained by his birthmark as well. Gold claims that only this theory would explain his incredible strength and why a powerful wolf demon like Frey follows him so willingly. Natalia still thinks that her son is a simp who puts his thumb inside his buttocks, but Gold reassures her that whatever Haruto is, all they want is for him to be happy. Meanwhile, this sneaky little Charlotte overhears everything. She now knows that Haruto is something far more special than anyone realizes. Back in his room, Haruto notices that his adoptive father, Margrave Gold, has been busier than usual. As he lies down on his bed, he hears commotion outside the castle. Using his magic to get a peek, he sees a massive number of soldiers receiving emergency treatment. Haruto then approaches his father outside the castle walls, who looks completely devastated. Gold explains that they received intelligence about some criminals and attacked them. But his army got psyched and ambushed from behind, resulting in a heavy loss. Worried the biological liquidy sight is too much for a 9-year-old, Gold tells him to park his disgusting thick ass back in the castle. Haruto obeys without a word, but his face is a mask of cold fury. As they walk, Frey starts mocking the soldiers for being such beta males. In a rare burst of anger, Haruto tells her to be quiet. The command is so out of character that Frey is stunned into silence. Now Haruto walks through the wounded soldiers and secretly unleashes his barrier magic. In an instant, every soldier's wounds, from gashes to broken bones, vanish completely. The soldiers stare in disbelief before erupting in cheers, while his father looks around, completely bewildered by the miracle he just witnessed. Later that night, while Haruto is sleeping like a little kid in his room, Frey stands right outside of his door like 3 fingers in wrong turn. When he tries talking to her, she remains completely mute. He quickly realizes Frey is still following his command to shut her mouth literally. Thinking how ridiculous this is, Haruto apologizes and officially gives her permission to speak again. She immediately apologizes for her rude comments, even though these formalities make no sense to him. With that settled, Haruto focuses on the real problem. Using his surveillance magic, he scans the entire estate to find the thieves. He quickly locates their fort, but also makes a chilling discovery. Some of his father's own soldiers are working as spies to penetrate him in the night. Realizing this is more than just a simple bandit problem, Haruto decides to annihilate these troublemakers. Without a second thought, Haruto uses his barrier to fly off into the night, with Frey following close behind. From her bedroom window, his little sister Charlotte sees the 2 figures soaring through the sky and is left utterly confused. Meanwhile, at the thieves' fort, the mood is festive. They're laughing about how they crushed Gold's soul and his pathetic soldiers. However, their celebration is cut short when Haruto casually strolls into their party with baby oil like Diddy. They barely have time to draw their weapons before his barrier magic freezes them all in place. To make a point, Haruto sends one of them flying into a wall with enough force to leave a man-shaped crater. Without shedding a sweat, Haruto threatens them to cooperate with him, or else they'll turn into Obama's personal chef. Eventually, he finds out the shocking truth. They are not thieves at all, but soldiers from the neighboring empire. Their mission was to pose as bandits to cause chaos and weaken the kingdom from the inside. They also confess they have an accomplice high up in the kingdom's command, someone with the same level of authority as his father. After they spill every last detail, they beg for their lives. But Haruto hasn't forgotten that they tried to unalive his father. With ice in his voice, he turns to Frey and gives a single command to burn the entire fort to the ground, with everyone inside. He doesn't care about kingdom politics, but he will not forgive anyone who mingles with his father's hairy butt. He then plans on sending an anonymous letter to his father, explaining everything about the attack. The next day, one of Gold's men confirms that everything in the letter was true. As he listens to the details, Gold is deeply troubled, wondering how Imperial soldiers know about his hairy ass. He suspects the fiery demon Frey was behind the fort's destruction, but he can't figure out the whole story. At this point, Charlotte knows more than her blonde father and runs to leave the room. She finally connects the dots about last night and is determined to find what's going on. Charlotte marches straight to Frey and confronts her with a bizarre question about whether Haruto has a twin brother. Since Frey has no idea what she is talking about, Charlotte explains that she saw Haruto flying away last night, but when she checked his room, she saw him in his bed, grabbing his sausage. Impressed by her sharp observation, Frey reveals that Haruto has always possessed immeasurable magic power, far beyond that of any demon. She continues to glaze her master for a few minutes, while the little girl listens carefully. However, Frey refuses to reveal more details, explaining that Charlotte will have to wait for Haruto to tell her himself. When Haruto finds out about this, He creates a surveillance magic to keep Charlotte away, but his plans do not seem to work, because ever since that day, the little girl has been spying on him like a CIA agent. He has to apply extreme caution before doing something risky now that Charlotte is on his tail all the time. However, this little incident is soon overshadowed by a more immediate threat. While on their way to a festival, Charlotte and her mother, Natalia, are ambushed by another group of Imperial soldiers. Haruto gets a notification about this attack, and he immediately logs into his barrier magic portal. Natalia's bodyguards are swiftly defeated, forcing her to flee with her little daughter. She uses her powers to stop the incoming attacks, while Charlotte is being guided by Haruto's barrier magic. Eventually, Natalia manages to find a hidden cave, and the two get inside safely. But she tells Charlotte to stay put while she lures the soldiers away. However, the soldiers find this dumb broad almost immediately. Knowing she can't be taken prisoner, Natalia pulls out a dagger, ready to take her own life. But just as she's about to strike, the dagger shatters and she's knocked unconscious. An absolutely enraged Haruto appears and defeats the soldiers in the blink of an eye. He carries his mother back to the cave and reassures a terrified Charlotte that she's safe. As Haruto turns to leave and clean up the rest of the mess, Charlotte calls out to him. For the first time, she isn't looking at him with fear or disdain, but with awe. She tentatively asks him if he is an ally of justice. Completely caught off guard by the first real conversation they've ever had, Haruto just decides to roll with it and agrees. Charlotte's eyes light up with amazement, realizing her simp brother is actually a secret hero. She promises to keep his power a secret from everyone, even their father. Feeling a pang of guilt for manipulating her, Haruto leaves to take care of the remaining bad guys. Back at the castle, Margrave Gold is having a conversation with Haruto, who cleverly drops a hint about how there's a spy inside the Empire. Just then, Charlotte, Natalia, and Frey also arrive at his office. But instead of her usual cold shoulder, Charlotte runs directly to Haruto and throws her arms around him in a tight hug, telling him how much she missed him. Their parents are surprised to see their children, who had been fighting like Israel and Palestine, suddenly getting along so well. As Charlotte declares that she loves her brother from now on, Frey watches from the sidelines, clearly jealous of this entire ordeal. Now that Haruto has saved her, Charlotte is completely attached to him like semen. While he used to be absolutely hated by her, the little girl is very affectionate towards him. Even though Haruto has no idea how to handle this compassion, her presence is surprisingly comforting. Just then, Charlotte spots the holographic screen displaying his surveillance magic, and her eyes go wide with curiosity. To hide his secret, Haruto tells her it's a form of ancient magic, and Charlotte does not seem to have second thoughts about it. Instead, she reveals that there are records of ancient magic in the castle's archive, and offers to show him. Later, the two walk into a gigantic library filled with millions of books. Haruto is blown away to discover such a massive structure hidden within their own home. As nimble as Donald Trump's personality, Charlotte scrambles up a ladder and brings him a stack of dusty books. As the two sit down at a table, Haruto begins reading. He eventually finds a passage describing how ancient magic had no elemental attributes, making him think his barrier magic might actually qualify. Charlotte explains that their mother and Frey used to read these books to her, and she sweetly asks him to do the same. Haruto agrees, only to be surprised when she plops herself right onto his non-existent ding-dong, explaining that's how she always listens to stories. While reading about gods who could travel between worlds, Haruto gets a pang of nostalgia for his old life. He mutters to himself that the only thing this world is missing is anime. The annoyingly curious Charlotte immediately asks him what anime is. Haruto passionately explains that it's a magical art where drawings can talk and move. He expects her to be weirded out, but instead the little girl gets incredibly excited and begs him to show her some anime. Seeing no way out, Haruto spends the next 2 weeks using his barrier magic to hack into his old world's internet. He sets up a screen for Charlotte, who stares in awe as the first animated character appears on the screen. As she begins watching this stupid little anime, Charlotte immediately gets bamboozled. The only problem is the language barrier, since they don't speak Japanese in this world. However, when Haruto tries to teach her the language, she masters the entire dictionary in just 2 hours. She can even use the internet like a regular Japanese kid, shocking her older brother. Within a fortnight, Charlotte is practically fluent, having binged an entire library of shows. Haruto realizes his sister might be a certified genius who is slowly morphing into a full-blown otaku. Later that night, Gold and Natalia notice their daughter dozing off at dinner. When they ask what's been going on, Charlotte hurriedly tells them that she's been helping Haruto with his ding-dong expansion operation. After dinner, Haruto tells the little girl that she can no longer watch anime, making her a little sad. He then goes to take a bath, and Charlotte also hops into the tub with him, explaining that she does not want to be alone. As they soak, she chatters on about anime, confirming she's officially one of the tribe. Just then, Charlotte points to the royal crest on his body and asks if that is the emblem of justice warriors. Later, Haruto finds her fast asleep in his bed, with their mother peeking in like a Jeffrey Dahmer. Natalia is happy that her kids are now getting along nicely, since that is all she wanted for them. A few days later, Margrave Gold bids farewell to his family for battle, as everyone hesitantly waves him goodbye. Later, Charlotte asks Hirata to use his powers to create a world without fighting. She is terribly worried about her father and pleads with Hirata to join the battle and transform into a hero like in the anime she watched. Unable to refuse her innocence, Hirata cringes internally, before transforming into a dramatic masked figure in a black cloak, looking like a carbon copy of Zero from Code Geass. Charlotte is absolutely starstruck and begs to join him on the journey. However, Haruto sternly refuses to take her along, but creates a magic screen so she can watch his heroic debut. He finds the thieves in the forest and introduces himself as Justice Warrior. With minimal effort, Haruto manages to defeat all of them, making sure no biological liquid is shed for his young audience. Just as he finishes, his father arrives with his soldiers. Caught on the spot, Haruto introduces himself by the first thing that comes to mind, Mia Khalifa. But just as Gold inquires about his powers, he gets embarrassed and leaves the forest, leaving his father completely hard down there. Haruto returns to his room, exhausted and embarrassed, but Charlotte thinks he's the coolest person alive. This stupid incident ends up creating his new unwanted alter ego as the Black Knight. With his social obligations piling up, Haruto finally perfects his talking clone. It's a perfect copy, right down to its personality, which immediately annoys him because the clone also refuses to leave the room. Just then, Haruto and Charlotte are summoned downstairs to greet some royal visitors, Princess Marion and her insufferable brother, Prince Laius. The prince immediately starts acting like Andrew Tate, forcing Margrave Gold to bow down to him since he is the future king. While Marion tries to knock some sense into his head, Laius notices Haruto and calls him a level 2 junk from an orphanage. He then challenges Haruto to a duel to teach him some discipline. Seeing no other way out of this, Haruto reluctantly agrees to fight with him. Mistaking his lack of enthusiasm for fear, Laius smugly promises to take it easy on him. Haruto checks his opponent's level and sees he's a measly level 9. He then looks at his father and Charlotte, who are some of the more powerful people in the kingdom. The duel begins, and Laius immediately lunges, but Haruto dodges his attacks like a dog dodging a water gun. Since he's extremely bored, Haruto stands still, puts up a barrier, and lets the prince hit him, pretending to be in pain. Suddenly, he stops acting, and proceeds to beat the crap out of this arrogant prince. Even when he gets up, Haruto manages to crush him every time. Feeling humiliated, Laius starts chanting and unleashes a powerful fireball, but to his shock, the spell simply vanishes before it can hit its target. He tries again and again, but each fireball disappears into thin air. Princess Marion tries to stop her brother from looking like Ukraine, but Laius is convinced some trickery is at play. Haruto then explains it was his magic, opening his hand to reveal a swirling vortex containing all of the absorbed fireballs, now merged into one massive sphere of fiery death. Finally understanding the galactic-sized gap in their power, the arrogant prince finally gets ready to lick Haruto's sausage. Now Haruto tries to leave and watch some anime, but Princess Marion stops him to apologize for her brother's behavior. When she asks Haruto if he's truly only level 2, he confirms it and walks away from her. However, a new worry starts creeping into his mind. After seeing his powers, Haruto wonders if his real parents, the king and queen, will start looking for the son they threw away. In the wake of Haruto's heroic debut, Charlotte has found a new hobby, acting as mission control. She spends her days glued to his surveillance magic, spotting suspicious individuals around their territory, and dutifully reporting them to her big brother. This has, unfortunately, turned Hirata's quiet life into a series of covert operations. Seeing him constantly heading out alone, Frey decides she's been on the sidelines for long enough and insists on giving him a satisfying time with her tongue. Charlotte, whose brain is now 90% anime, is ecstatic at the thought of a crime-fighting duo and immediately gives Haruto and Frey her blessing. Later, he tells Frey that no graphic violence must be used in the fights because Charlotte is watching them. That night, a new group of thieves celebrates their latest haul, but they are interrupted by the dramatic appearance of the Black Knight. He's not alone. At his side is Frey, who introduces herself with theatrical flair as the Red Knight. The thieves are too confused to even draw their weapons. Meanwhile, Frey gives them no time to think and immediately unleashes a torrent of fire with the intent of turning them all to ash. As she laughs like Kamala Harris, Haruto quickly throws a cooling barrier to save the very criminals he came to stop. As Frey channels an even bigger fireball, Haruto smacks her on the head with a squeaky toy hammer, reminding her of the no graphic violence rule. She argues that anyone in her master's way is an enemy, but Haruto distracts her by promising to land the final blow himself. Back at the castle, Haruto collapses onto his bed, hoping to receive some tongue action from Frey. Charlotte thought their team-up was incredibly cool, but also noted their dynamic was less like superheroes and more like Rick and Morty. Haruto is so exhausted that he does not even find this insult insulting. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Prince Laius is still furious about his humiliating defeat with Haruto. A subordinate enters his room and informs him that for his upcoming inspection of the gold territory, he is to invite Charlotte as his conversation partner. Laius wants to refuse, but he understands the message loud and clear. This is a direct order from his mother, the queen. Concerned about Charlotte's safety on this trip, Haruto decides to scout the inspection route with his surveillance magic. He immediately spots something sinister. A group of wizards in black cloaks gathered around like alcoholics amid a massive glowing magic circle. Certain that they're up to no good, he dons his Black Knight persona and teleports to their location. Haruto casually walks up to the wizards and asks what they're up to. Shocked by this sudden infiltration, all the wizards team up to launch an attack. They all summon a magic spell, hoping to end his life. But Haruto levitates up in the air and launches a massive fart that knocks most of them out cold. However, one wizard manages to complete the ritual, summoning an army of skeleton soldiers. Haruto finds them more goofy than scary, so as soon as they come attacking him, he simply slices them apart. However, Haruto quickly realizes that the skeleton soldiers keep getting back up like a male reproductive organ. Spotting a glowing gem on each skeleton, he hijacks their control and turns them against their former masters. Acting quickly, a wizard hurriedly summons a hulking golem from the ground. The stone giant easily pulverizes the skeleton army and lands a punch that sends Haruto flying, even with his barrier up. While the wizard gets overjoyed by this, Haruto realizes that he underestimated the golem's powers. But just then, he notices a similar gem embedded in its chest as well. After dodging a few more attacks, he launches a spike-shaped barrier that pierces the gem. This causes the golem to shut down completely. To add to the wizard's horror, the beast turns on them, now under complete control of Haruto. With his new minions tying them up, Haruto interrogates their leader of this suspicious-looking group. He learns they are a special unit under the direct command of the queen. They have been instructed to summon monsters and assassinate Charlotte during the inspection. The wizard explains that the queen fears Charlotte's latent potential. She is worried that with the backing of Margrave Gold, she could one day have the biggest racks in the world. It was the queen who sent the imperial soldiers to attack his dad, the queen who tried to unalive his mother and Charlotte, and the queen who had him abandoned in a forest. The realization that his own biological mother is the source of all his family's suffering causes Harada's power to surge uncontrollably. This manifests into the golem, which tries to crush the wizard in its hands, but Harada stops it. He vows to protect his family from this evil woman and unalive her, even though she is his biological mother. The next day, the inspection begins. In the royal carriage, Charlotte tries to cheer up a sulking Laius by telling him that his pee-pee is shorter than 2 inches, and the fact that Laius could even get it up is commendable. The conversation eventually turns to Haruto's strange abilities, with Laius wondering if he's part demon. Charlotte innocently refutes this by announcing to both royals that her brother has the biggest pee-pee, and that she knows because they take baths together all the time. The revelation leaves Laius and Princess Marion staring at Haruto with a mixture of shock and horror. Later, they all reach a beautiful wheat field and gaze at the setting sun. While the siblings explore the land like little kids, Haruto approaches his adoptive father with Frey. He carefully brings up the subject of the queen targeting Charlotte. Margrave Gold's expression turns grim. He reveals that the Black Knight's anonymous letters had already made him scared for his hairy little butt. Seeing Haruto worried about his sister's life, Gold finally explains the delicate political balance of these kingdoms. King Jilk is a figurehead who lost his power to his wife. Meanwhile, Queen Giliselda, who is hailed as the Princess of Light, has slowly retained power years ago and rules all the kingdoms. This story enables her to hold the ambitious opposing nobles in check. Gold explains that he cannot operate against Queen Giliselda, as it would plunge the kingdom into civil war. As Haruto patiently listens to his father, Gold confesses that he believes Charlotte has the potential to have the biggest knockers in the kingdom, and one day surpass the queen. He then looks at Haruto with an unspoken request hanging in the air. Margrave Gold wants his son to protect Charlotte until she is ready to become the queen of all the kingdoms. Finally, Haruto understands the stupid political thing that was going on. He realizes that Charlotte ascending the throne is the surest path to his ultimate goal, a peaceful, undisturbed life as a loner. Overhearing this story, Frey misinterprets the story about the Demon King and becomes determined to avenge Haruto by unaliving the queen. However, Haruto stops her with a cold look in his eyes. He informs Frey that he will deal with his biological mother himself, as it will become the most awaited family reunion in history. Inside the royal palace, Queen Giliselda is listening to a report from her soldiers while flaunting her massive airbags. Their mission to assassinate Charlotte has failed yet again, thanks to the meddling of the mysterious Black Knight. Enraged by their incompetence, she splashes her wine glass on the general's face, while they hopelessly kneel before her in total humiliation. She then decides to defeat this stupid Black Knight herself, and pulls out a sword from the wall. Suddenly, a calm voice echoes through the chamber, putting her on her heels. The Black Knight has arrived, and he effortlessly dispatches her royal guards, leaving him and the queen alone for a final showdown. As the two face each other, the queen has no idea she is about to fight her literal egg. Without further ado, the infamous Princess of Light unleashes the full might of her magic. She traps him in a multi-layered sphere of water to drown him. But the Black Knight manages to escape this stupid trap. She then launches a storm of razor-sharp icicles, but even this is too easy for her son. Furious, the queen launches a scorching inferno. confident that the Black Knight will be reduced to charcoal. However, her son emerges from the flames completely unscathed. While the queen is still reeling in shock, he launches a relentless counterattack. While she recollects her prestige, the Black Knight shatters her magical shields one by one, until she's forced to rely on her swordsmanship. The queen is surprisingly good with swords, and the two engage in a brutal fight. She then launches herself in the air to deliver a final blow, which forces the Black Knight into a vulnerable position. However, Haruto disarms her with a single strike, as she stands there like a cornstar who just lost her job. Before she can react, he uses his magic to place a collar around her neck. She feels the insult of the device and tries desperately to remove it, but he coldly warns her that her head will be severed if she tries to take it off by force. Haruto doesn't care about her plans or her power, but he makes it clear that if she ever meddles with the Gold family or their territory again, the collar will detonate. Before leaving, he adds one final reminder. The collar will only come off when he gets a satisfying tongue action from her. With his message delivered, Haruto vanishes from her sight, leaving the queen in tears of rage and utter humiliation. 5 peaceful years have passed since the showdown, and the queen has never interfered with their lives again. Charlotte has no idea about Hirata saving her life, as she joyfully enjoys her childhood playing and having fun. In the snowy landscape of the Gold territory, a now 14-year-old Haruto watches as Charlotte, still a dedicated anime geek, she proudly shows off a transformation brooch she sculpted from snow. Nearby, Frey has built a perfect but totally useless snow replica of their castle. Meanwhile, Frey continues wearing this revealing outfit even in the winter, hoping to get railed by Haruto in his bed sometimes. However, he magically gives her some warmer clothes to end her misery. Seeing an opportunity, Frey immediately lists 10 other requests, which Haruto rejects without a moment's hesitation. Undeterred, Charlotte decides it's time for her ultimate technique, a special move that requires Haruto's power. He gets a bad feeling but is powerless against her pleading. He's forced to recite an embarrassing chant before creating a massive snow cyclone that carves a deep crater in the ground. Immediately, the little girl runs into his arms to express how much she loves her. Just as Charlotte and Frey are marveling at his power, his parents arrive, wondering about the new hole in their landscape. To avoid revealing his secret, Haruto quickly creates a clone of the Black Knight, claiming the mysterious hero just stopped by to show off a new move. Later, Margrave Gold updates his son about the evil queen's situation. At first, the people thought the collar was for her weird fantasies in bed, but lately, everyone has started realizing that the queen is under some weird spell from the Demon Lord. Since Charlotte is now safe from the queen's evil hands, Gold informs Haruto that he will be attending school in the capital starting next summer. Haruto's mind flashes back to the isolation of his previous life, and he's filled with dread. Gold explains that it's a direct request from the king himself, likely because Princess Marion wants to gobble up his biological instrument. He adds that the queen wants to send Haruto to the main kingdom to keep the Gold family weak. Although he is wary of the queen's potential schemes, if Gold refuses the order, he would cause a massive political incident. Realizing he's trapped either way, Haruto reluctantly agrees to go to school. This brings up the next problem. He needs a personal attendant for school. Frey is immediately ruled out as she is way too excited about Haruto's sausage. Natalia even offers to go herself, but it's quickly pointed out that students don't bring their parents as attendants. With this, they now have 3 months to find a suitable person for the job. Haruto, of course, has his own plan. He wants to send his clone to attend the school in his place. As expected, the clone, possessing the exact same personality, flatly refuses to go. Haruto has to patiently explain the strategy. The clone is weak and possesses no magic, so it will be the perfect tool to make Haruto look completely incompetent, hopefully getting him kicked out of the academy right away. The clone is still unhappy about being a scapegoat, but he finally agrees after Haruto promises to lick his sausage in return. With a plan in motion, Haruto retreats to his true sanctuary, a lakeside log house he spent the last 5 years building on a nearby mountain. It's the perfect quiet paradise where he can finally relax and bounce his fist on his lap. The only problem is that he can't stop Charlotte and Frey from visiting to watch anime. He learns that Charlotte's visits to his castle room have become less frequent because their parents have asked her to stop hanging around him now that she's older. It's during one of these visits that Arata mentions he can use his magic for teleportation, though he has only tried it over short distances and never with living things. Frey immediately suggests a brilliant and slightly unethical solution. Use the clone for a test run. Haruto opens a shimmering portal connecting his log house to his bedroom back at the castle. He calls out to his clone, asking it to pass through. However, the clone knows the real Haruto is terrified of being lost in the void of space, and starts taunting him, daring him to try it first. As the two Harutos bicker, a furious Frey decides to take action. Without a word, she leaps through the portal, appears in the castle bedroom, grabs the stunned clone, and hurls him ruthlessly back through to the log house. Seeing his double land in a heap on the floor, Haruto calmly concludes that the experiment was a complete success. The problem of getting to and from the capital was officially solved. While taking a break from his demanding schedule of playing video games in his log cabin, Haruto decides to go for a walk to clear his head. He wanders deep into the forest, eventually coming across a place he hasn't visited in a while. What was once a simple hideout has transformed into a bustling, organized village populated by the skeleton soldiers he'd acquired from the Queen's wizards, along with a host of other stray monsters Frey had rounded up. As soon as the skeletons spot him, they snap to attention and offer a synchronized salute like Nigerian pirates. Haruto is visibly confused by this, but just then, the skeleton leader, a surprisingly polite and well-spoken skeleton named Johnny, introduces himself. He then offers to give Haruto a grand tour of their settlement. Johnny proudly shows off their farms, where they grow crops and raise livestock. He goes on to explain how the skeletons and the stray monsters have divided the territory and are living peacefully under his leadership. Haruto is impressed by their ingenuity, but his mind has already drifted elsewhere. He's still bothered by the fact that he needs an attendant for the academy. As he observes Johnny, who is gentle, loyal, and impeccable, a light bulb goes off. He could just make him look human. The idea seems perfect, until Haruto realizes he needs to give Johnny a big ding-dong. With this, his perfect attendant just lost a job he never knew he had. Eventually, Haruto plans a polite escape, and he spends his time in a quiet lakeside by himself. But he is soon interrupted by Gigan, the giant golem, who clumsily sits beside him like a little girl. She then silently offers Haruto a pretty flower, and tries to flirt with him. Gigan's quiet and docile nature makes him reconsider her as a candidate for his attendant, but one look at her colossal size immediately squashes that idea. Despite this, the two sit down for a moment, talking about their intense battle 5 years ago. Annoyed by the attendant search, Haruto returns home, only to be ambushed by Frey, who somehow sensed he was looking for an attendant. She gets furious and asks him about it, but with his father's ultimatum in his mind, Haruto simply leaves the scene. The next day, Charlotte bursts in with a new, overly dramatic name for the Black Knight, suggesting Schwarzer Ritter, which she excitedly shortens to Shiva. While Charlotte is impressed by her own creation, Haruto is speechless and annoyed. Later, the little girl meets Johnny with Frey, who politely greet them as well. Charlotte proposes a name for the monster village as well, and suggests Pandemonium, a title Johnny and Frey instantly approve of. Their domestic chaos is interrupted when Margrave Gold summons Haruto to his office with a serious problem. Earlier that day, a massive injured blue monster called Blizzard Dragon had crashed just outside their territory, wreaking havoc all around. Gold explains that since it's injured and cornered, the Blizzard Dragon could easily go on a rampage and enter their region, causing many civilian casualties, so he needs Frey to investigate this situation. Demon to assess the threat it poses. However, she flatly refuses because 50 years ago, this dragon betrayed her clan during the mighty war between humans and demons. In her eyes, the dragon is a coward who hid like a wussy while his friends fought and lost their lives. Haruto understands this situation and asks his father for a little more time to decide. As they walk out, they notice Charlotte, who had been eavesdropping from outside the room. With tears in her eyes, she pictures the dragon alone, wounded and scared, and begs Frey to save it. For Haruto, this changes everything. He calmly informs Frey that Charlotte's wish is now his wish. Unable to refuse a direct order from her master, Frey reluctantly agrees. She declares that she'll eliminate everyone that are threatening the dragon. Arriving at the border, Haruto uses his magic to scan the area. He quickly finds the dragon, noting the multiple arrows buried in its body and how worn out it looks. Haruto also notices some poachers looking to capture the injured dragon. As the poachers close in to unalive the dragon, the duo appears to block them. While Haruto starts healing the dragon's vagina, Frey looks at the poachers like a basket of fresh meat. She then goes on an immediate rampage and manages to defeat all of them in a single blow. After neutralizing the hunters, Haruto introduces himself as the Black Knight, only to be instantly frozen solid for his troubles. He effortlessly shatters the ice, annoyed that this is the thanks he gets for saving her. He realizes the dragon can communicate telepathically, much like Frey did when they first met. However, the dragon ignores him and directs her questions to Frey, demanding to know why a powerful demon would obey a mere human. Frey launches into an enthusiastic hour-long saga detailing her entire history with Haruto, finally convincing the dragon that he is in fact the reincarnation of the Demon King. The dragon apologizes for her past cowardice, explaining that for 300 years she has lived a quiet loner life in the mountains simply because she hates fighting. This immediately resonates with Haruto, who is both jealous and intrigued. The dragon recounts how she initially just curled up in her cave, but her life changed when she discovered a book left by an adventurer. She read it over and over, until she felt an overwhelming urge for more, which led her to take human form to sneak into villages and acquire books. But one day, during her literary adventure, she was discovered by the village people and started chasing after her. They even burnt all her books, forcing her to leave the only place she called home. Hearing her story, Frey's anger melts away, and she immediately offers her a place in Pandemonium. Haruto explains that their goal was to offer her shelter all along. Delighted at the prospect of a safe home with access to new books and companions, the dragon immediately accepts him as her new master. As she begins to transform into her human form, Haruto remembers his first awkward encounter with a naked Frey, so he quickly uses his magic to cover up the dragon. before he gets rock hard. In a flash of light, the colossal beast is replaced by a small blue-haired girl. The girl is stunned by the clothes that appeared from nowhere and praises Haruto for his magical abilities. At that moment, Haruto removes his mask and introduces himself properly. Since the girl has no human identity, he then decides to give her a name. Since she is a blizzard dragon, he calls her Lisa, a tribute to his favorite corn star. Lisa loves her new name and happily greets him as her master. However, Frey immediately steps in, reminding Lisa that she was the first to serve Haruto. She tells Lisa to wait her turn before she can lick Haruto's flagpole. Right then, Haruto and Lisa take to the sky to head home, while an annoyed Frey is left on the ground. She is forced to run after them as fast as her legs can carry her. Back at the castle, Haruto introduces his newest recruit to his family, Margrave Gold, a man who has seen enough weirdness to last 3 lifetimes, barely blinks at the news that a blizzard dragon will now be working as a maid. He calmly agrees to let Lisa stay, as long as she licks him off as well. Natalia is simply happy to see another cute face around, while Charlotte is practically vibrating with excitement. Meanwhile, Frey is determined to establish her dominance as the senior servant, and takes it upon herself to teach Lisa the ropes of domestic service. Her first lesson is cleaning the front yard. She grabs a broom with the confidence of a master, but her stupid moves only end up breaking the broom like a dry twig. On the other hand, Lisa begins her sweeping duty and quickly cleans the entire yard flawlessly. Next up is dishwashing in the kitchen. Every time Frey touches a plate, it breaks under her powerful hands, making her furious. Once again, Lisa handles the task with an innate grace. The final test is cooking. Frey's culinary masterpiece looks and smells like a lump of charcoal. In stark contrast, Lisa manages to prepare an exquisite meal in just an hour of learning. She even receives praise from her fellow housemates. That evening at dinner, the verdict is in. Margrave Gold and Natalia are absolutely stunned by Lisa's cooking skills. All the while, a depressed Frey can only sulk in a corner, having failed spectacularly at every single task. It quickly becomes clear that Lisa is a natural learner. Observing how well she takes care of Charlotte, Natalia suggests that she become her personal maid. Gold agrees immediately, and Lisa, eager to please her masters, promises to do her very best. She also mentions that she learned a little bit of magic when she was a dragon, which makes Natalia even happier. This final promotion is the last nail in the coffin for Frey's ego. As Charlotte's personal maid, Lisa becomes a resounding success. She wakes up Charlotte in the morning and takes her for magic training. In just a few hours, Charlotte's abilities have improved by leaps and bounds, as she successfully creates fire from just using magic spells. Ever since that day, the two have become unspoken good friends. Lisa helps her with her homework, accompanies her to the library to read, and, most importantly, trains her in magic. They have even started to visit the hot baths together. One day, as Haruto watches from the sidelines, Charlotte excitedly shows him how she can now create a huge, stable fireball, giving all the credit to Lisa's excellent teaching. Haruto is amazed, not just by Charlotte's progress, but by Lisa's incredible multitasking skills. She casually does the laundry with a floating sphere of water while simultaneously instructing Charlotte. When Haruto asks her if she ever gets tired doing all these jobs at the same time, she lets out a gentle smile. Lisa assures him that she actually enjoys serving Charlotte because it makes her feel useful. Haruto watches the two of them, thinking how precious their new bond is. But just then, he realizes that Lisa would have been the perfect candidate to fiddle him ping pong at night, and for his attendant. She is pretty, smart, loyal, and does not talk much. However, just as he makes this decision, he notices the girls being cute together. However, his dumb brain comes up with a brilliant idea. He just needs to build a permanent teleportation portal between his school dorm and the castle. That way, he won't have to separate the girls at all. As days went by, their bond grew so strong that Lisa began to join Charlotte and Frey on their visits to Haruto's secluded log cabin. One day, Charlotte is sulking because Haruto does not allow her to watch hentai. Just as she is about to leave with Lisa, Haruto casually mentions that he will be going to school in the capital next week. The words hit Charlotte like a lightning bolt. As she stares at him, her mind is filled with a montage of every anime trope she has ever seen. Dark student councils, magical terrorists, and whatnot. So she immediately asks Lisa to cancel all their plans for the day to hold an emergency meeting. As all the members arrive for the meeting, Charlotte mentions how Haruto once described school as a terrifying and dangerous place. So they all decide to stop Haruto from leaving to protect his life from the dangers in a school environment. Later that evening, a sensible Lisa goes directly to Haruto and explains the entire convoluted plan his sister has concocted. He realizes that the girls are sad about him leaving, so he decides to cheer them up somehow. The following day, as they relax, Haruto asks Lisa what her 300-year life in the cave was actually like. She describes a routine that sounds like heaven to Haruto. Wake up at noon, read until she falls asleep, whack off, wake up in the evening, read some more, whack off, then go back to sleep. When he asks about her meals, Lisa casually mentions she only eats once a week. Haruto is in awe as she is a true master of the loner lifestyle. Meanwhile, Charlotte asks Frey why her outfit is different from other maids. She explains that the maids tried to give her a normal outfit, but her juggernauts were too big to fit inside that shirt. So Frey made this dress by herself, and asked the baby Haruto if she looked good. After his approval, she never looked back and wore the same dress every day. The next day, Haruto unveils the new open-air bath he built by the lake. Charlotte and Lisa immediately jump in, but Frey, true to her fiery nature, dislikes the hot water, and only dips the tip of her tail in. Seeing this, Charlotte and Lisa start teasing her, joking that her nibbles are made of jelly donuts. After some more disgusting prodding, Frey finally gives in and jumps into the bath. Ever since that day, Frey dips into the hot water every day with her massive racks. Next, to satisfy his own curiosity, Haruto creates a handheld magic-level measuring device. He asks the girls to try it out, and they happily agree. Frey is first, clocking in at level 40, with a maximum potential of 77. Lisa is next, with a current level of 36 and a max of 71. These are impressive numbers. But Haruto isn't surprised. The real shock comes when he measures Charlotte. She is currently level 17, but her maximum potential level is a staggering 61, significantly higher than the Queen's level 44. Charlotte explains that their mother had to put a sealing spell on her when she was just a baby, after she accidentally conjured a fireball out of nowhere. Haruto realizes his little sister isn't just talented, she's a once-in-a-generation genius who could easily reach her full potential with continued training. The girls, however, are more interested in Haruto's level. Frey is certain it will be over 100, but Haruto claims his magic level is a secret. The day of departure has arrived. Downstairs, Haruto's clone stands awkwardly as the family says their last goodbyes. Lisa is with him, as she is still shivering from the penetration by Haruto earlier. Meanwhile, Frey looks as depressed as a golem at a sprinting competition. Charlotte, on the other hand, confidently gives her brother a heroic send-off, reminding him to be careful and use rubber protection. Meanwhile, in the capital, Princess Marion bursts into her brother's room, excitedly announcing that Haruto is on his way. Laius feigns annoyance, but it's quickly revealed that he was the one who pulled strings to get Haruto the royal recommendation in the first place. His motive isn't friendship. He's desperate to have Haruto close so he can finally figure out the impossible gap between their strengths and hopefully catch up. Marion points out that while he's still cocky, he has changed a lot since his defeat. As the two chat, it is also revealed that Marion has a huge crush on Haruto, and she wants to jump on his magical rod immediately. Meanwhile, their conversation takes a darker turn, as they discuss a radical new sect of the state religion called Lucifer. Marion explains that they hold dangerous devil-worshipping beliefs, and that their influence is spreading like a plague through the schools and the nobility, with rumors circulating that they are trying to overthrow the monarchy itself. Their mother, the Queen, is one of their biggest financial backers. They reflect on how her behavior has become increasingly erratic and extreme in the 5 years since the mysterious collar appeared on her neck. Laius even voices his fear that she might be plotting to take down their father. At that moment, Marion claims that only with powers like Haruto can someone take down the evil Queen. Just as Laius mentions that the Black Knight could probably solve all their problems, the Queen herself enters the room. Immediately, both of them stop dead in their tracks. The two nervously greet her, but when she notices Marion glance at her collar, she snaps at her own daughter. She grabs the princess by the throat, like 50 Shades of Grey, and with pure evil in her eyes, the Queen venomously asks if she finds her pathetic appearance amusing. Marion struggles to breathe, but only when Laius shouts at his mother, she finally let her daughter go. While the poor girl catches her breath, the Queen says that she was only joking with her daughter. Before leaving, she approaches Laius and runs her hand near his neck. Like a true villain, the Queen gives her son a chilling order: to get as much information as possible about the Black Knight from Haruto. With no other alternative, the poor boy is forced to accept the deal given by his mother. When she leaves, the weight of his actions crashes down on Laius. In his attempt to measure his rival, he has dragged Haruto directly into his family's dangerous political nightmare. Far from this drama, the real Haruto and Lisa use the teleportation door. Emerging in a quiet forest near the capital, to avoid attracting attention, they begin walking toward the city. However, their plan for a stealthy entrance is immediately derailed when they see a shabby cargo carriage. A poorly made carriage is being chased by a rampaging evil bison. Haruto's first instinct is to ignore it, but he knows Charlotte would be immensely disappointed if she found out he let people get hurt. With a sigh, he transforms into his stupid Black Knight persona and launches himself at the field. Just then, the carriage runs into a large stone and it crashes to the ground. Haruto notices a girl who looks like Lisa Ann, bravely defending the carriage. She even manages to halt the bison's thunderous charge with a surprising display of physical reinforcement magic. However, the beast's sheer power is too much, and it throws her into the air, leaving her injured and defenseless. Just as the bison gets ready to attack the girl, Haruto stomps right on top of the animal and saves the girl from injury, as the bison lies down unconscious. The girl is stunned to see this. Initially, she says she has a boyfriend, but realizing that feminism is dead, she thanks Haruto for saving her life. He finds her social awkwardness almost endearing, so he heals her injuries with his unique magic and introduces himself as Shiva, the enforcer of justice. The child thinks he's the coolest person ever, while the other adults just stare in awkward silence. Noticing their carriage is damaged, Harada repairs it with a wave of his hand. The girl, even more amazed, apologizes for not having any money to reward him. At this time, Harada delivers the classic hero line about not seeking compensation, then decides to return the unconscious bison to its herd. This final act of kindness leaves the girl completely wet with biological gravy. After releasing the beast, Haruto and Lisa finally head into the capital. Lisa mentions that she felt something strange from the girl, something quite abnormal, but the simp, Haruto, brushes it off, since the girl had absolutely normal-looking airbags. As the two reach school for admission, Haruto is perplexed to see a long queue of students. He is then asked to fill up a mountain of unnecessary paperwork, which he reluctantly fills out. After enduring a brutal process to get registered, Haruto finally gets to his dorm room. He immediately opens a teleportation door back to his log cabin, unable to relax in the unfamiliar space. He's welcomed back by Charlotte and Frey, but Haruto simply crashes down on the couch. Seeing him hungry, Frey gets ready to prepare a warm meal for him, but Charlotte has other plans. She convinces Frey they go out for a lunch-eating mission disguised as a date. Charlotte even gives Frey a costume to hide her demon features, but it's so over the top that it just makes her more conspicuous. At last, Haruto has to use his own magic to properly conceal her ears and tail. With this, they all enter this bustling capital for the first time in their lives. Haruto finds himself on his first ever date in either of his miserable lives. Even though he is not a fan of being outside, he pretends to enjoy it for Charlotte's sake. Haruto even accompanies her as she happily explores the shops. They then visit a local jewelry shop where Charlotte wants to buy a lovely little necklace. Without hesitation, Haruto buys it for her even though he has no money. Their outing leads them to a town fountain, where they have a chance encounter. It's the very same girl Haruto rescued from the bison. She immediately recognizes his enormous magical power and connects him to the Black Knight. Haruto immediately denies it, claiming he is just a creepy little simp. Despite this, the girl remains adamant, but she soon leaves them alone after apologizing. After the girl walks away, Haruto watches her, but it's Charlotte who voices his own suspicion. She turns to him with a serious expression and tells him that she felt a powerful energy from the girl. As the siblings stand there confused, they are certain that the girl is not an ordinary person. Next, Haruto's clone storms into the log cabin with bad news. A school official has informed him that, as a transfer student, he is required to take a proficiency test before the entrance ceremony. However, he refuses to take the exam and opts out of the mission. Surprisingly, this gives the real Haruto a brilliant idea. It's the perfect opportunity to execute his master plan. He will personally take the test and fail so spectacularly that the academy will have no choice but to expel him on the spot. His dream of a peaceful, school-free life is finally within reach as he marches out of his room. The next day, Haruto arrives at the academy and is immediately struck by the extroverted energy of the place, which feels like a life-draining curse to his introverted spirit. He manages to reach the main gate successfully, but just then, a professor named Passos appears behind him. Passos then guides him to a massive classroom, and the sight of all the empty desks in the classroom fills him with a profound sense of dread. Haruto steels his resolve. He has to fail this test at any cost. As the exam paper is laid before him, Haruto is shocked to find the questions are insanely difficult. He confidently writes, "No clue" for a third of the answers. The next part of the question is set on barrier magic. To avoid looking like he's intentionally failing, Haruto decides to answer truthfully, describing his barriers as being able to move, change color, and sustain themselves without mana. Facts so contrary to modern magic theory that he's certain they'll be marked as gibberish. The final section is on ancient magic. Haruto recognizes the author of the reference text, a writer with an absurdly long name. But in his moment of nerdy enthusiasm, he completely forgets his mission and writes a detailed, passionate essay on the topic. With the written portion done, Passos leads him to a different room for his mana assessment. There he meets the head of the lab, a pint-sized professor who barely reaches his ding-dong. She introduces herself as Tieta, the ancient magic researcher, and immediately begins examining him like a curious new specimen, commenting on his pretty hair and face. She then warns him that if he gets on her bad side, she'll have him sent home, even with the king's recommendation. This is music to Harata's ears, and his face lights up with genuine excitement. But this reaction only makes the professor corny with an H. As the assessment continues, Haruto is asked to place his hand on the Mija crystal ball, which is used to measure magic levels. He expects it to show his usual level 2, but instead, the crystal shines with blinding intensity. Within seconds, the Mija ball gets overloaded, and it shatters into 1,000 pieces. Haruto internally celebrates, thinking this act of destroying a priceless artifact is surely his ticket home. But Tieta's reaction is the exact opposite of what he expected. She thinks it was spectacular, explaining that the Mija ball couldn't handle the sheer volume of his magic from Haruto's hand. At this moment, Tieta reveals the full truth about Harata's ability. The exam he just took was at the Royal Magician level, far too advanced for any new student. She praises his splendid answers on barrier and ancient magic, revealing that they were almost a perfect copy of her own writings. Hirata's biological liquid runs cold as he realizes she is the author with the ridiculously long name. Tieta immediately tries to recruit him for her research, but Hirato, furious that his perfect plan has backfired so completely, sternly refuses and storms out of the room. With the real Haruto unable to fail in the exam, the burden of attending school falls to his clone. Charlotte understands the situation and hands him a firearm to end his pathetic little existence. After the entrance ceremony, he tries to sneak back to his dorm, desperate to avoid human interaction. But he runs directly into a group of arrogant upperclassmen, led by the student vice president, David. At the same moment, he bumps into the mysterious girl from the fountain, Iris, sending his face planting directly into her knocker boots. David, enraged that these two nobodies walked past him without bowing, demands they show him some respect. Haruto's clone wants nothing to do with this, so he tries the classic "I have to go to the restroom" excuse. However, this obvious lie infuriates David, who launches a magic attack on him. The spell hits Haruto's clone squarely in the back, but thanks to the real Haruto's protective barrier, he gets up without a scratch. At that moment, Haruto's clone completely forgot that he was supposed to be weak, and should have pretended to be hurt. Seeing his attack had no effect, David's rage boils over, and he begins chanting a far more powerful and lethal spell. Hirata apologizes for getting him involved, but before she can intervene, Haruto's clone makes his move. He whips out the magic-powered firearm Charlotte gave him earlier for self-defense and blasts David, sending the vice president flying like an owl. Without a second thought, he then uses this opportunity to run for his life. Later, a depressed Hirata's clone recounts the entire disastrous day to the real Hirato, who feels immensely sorry for his double. His problems are far from over, as a letter arrives from David, challenging him to a formal duel. Rejecting it would bring dishonor to the Gold family, making it an impossible situation. That evening, Haruto spots Aratus heading to David's residence. She pleads with the vice president to cancel the duel, taking all the blame on herself. However, David is in a foul mood. His shoulder is in immense pain from the magic gun, and he takes out his frustration on his healers in Aratus. He then makes a disgusting proposal. He will cancel the duel if she agrees to jiggle her watermelons in front of him and his cronies. To Haruto's horror and disgust, the poor girl agrees. But just as she is about to remove her top, the room is plunged into complete darkness. Right then, Haruto appears in his Shiva persona, having sealed the area in a pocket dimension. He scolds Iris for her lack of self-respect before turning his attention to a terrified David. He introduces himself as an enforcer of justice, and, as punishment for his actions, creates a magical vice block around David's injured shoulder. He explains that the vice will clamp down tighter if he tries to use magic, or if anyone attempts to heal him. He declares that the device will only be removed once he cancels the duel and properly atones for his sins. After Haruto leaves, the dimension dissipates. David's friends rush to his side, but as soon as they cast a healing spell on him, the vice activates. He lets out a biological liquid in a curdling scream of agony, a sound so pathetic that even his own lackeys can't help but burst out laughing at his miserable state. Haruto's life at the academy is officially a nightmare. Far from being expelled, he's now the talk of the entire school. In the aftermath of the David incident, Haruto is summoned to the faculty office. Expecting expulsion, he's instead met with praise. He's become an unwilling celebrity, with students wanting to sniff his armpits to be as powerful as him. Desperate to escape the attention, he tries to make a run for his dorm. But he's intercepted by the one person he wants to avoid most, Professor Tieta. She refuses to give up, cheerfully offering to explain her recruitment pitch all over again. Despite Hirata's reluctance, Tieta grabs his arm and remains adamant about recruiting him to her research lab. She lays out the academy's structure on the floor. All students must choose between the Knight's course and the Researcher's course. Knight's course is for people who are interested in physical combat and battles, whereas the Researcher's course is for magical studies. Given his impressive exam answers on ancient magic, Tieta insists he should work under her, and even promises to give him occasional sausage-licking events. Just then, Prince Laius walks towards him, and under the guise of a friendly greeting, he charges at Haruto. However, this attack was easily intercepted. Haruto is then greeted by Marion, whose knockers look even bigger in this red dress. As they all discuss their classes, she asks Haruto to accompany her to her research class. However, Laius wants him to join his lab because he wants to learn magic from Haruto. What follows is a chaotic three-way argument over Haruto's future, just when Arata steps in, claiming she wants to talk to Haruto privately. Seeing this as an opportunity, he grabs Arata's hands and leaves the corridor, claiming he has important things to do with her. This leaves the three furious, as none of them manage to bag this talented boy. Once they are alone, Haruto asks what she wanted to talk about. Iris reveals she knows the truth. She can sense the difference between him and his manaless clone, and she can also perceive his unique barrier magic. The way she describes his mana makes him wonder if she's a demon. This question catches Iris off guard, and she freezes up for a second before quietly confirming she is a human. She even apologizes for dragging Haruto into the mess with David. While he listens, Iris also thanks him for his protection, and then to his utter shock asks if they can be friends. Haruto is floored to hear this. Iris explains that she feels it was fate that they kept meeting. He learns that she was abandoned 4 times as a child and grew up in a monastery where she was mistreated by everyone except for a kind priest who died when she was 5. This isolated upbringing left her with a complete lack of common sense and life skills, and she hopes that by befriending him she can finally learn how to use her fingers to satisfy herself. Haruto bluntly tells her she's come to the wrong person since he is also an introvert. But to Iris, this is perfect. It means they are similar and can learn together. Haruto, realizing she could be a useful ally in navigating school life, reluctantly agrees. When he learns she's also joining Tieta's ancient magic lab, he sighs in resignation, realizing his fate is sealed. However, Iris simply beams at him, her genuine smile so radiant that Haruto thinks it could rival Charlotte's. Meanwhile, Charlotte, Frey, and Lisa are soaking in the hot water tub, talking about Haruto and how much they miss him. Without hesitation, Charlotte gets up with a brilliant idea. While Frey and Lisa continue soaking their airbags in the water, they then discuss who has the prettiest airbags for a couple of hours. Frey gets slightly vulnerable and shares her experience with Haruto, how he was a powerful entity even when he was a Weasley little child. Lisa cannot comprehend this level of power. Before they realize, the girls get sad because they don't get to play with Haruto's ding-dong anymore. On the other hand, Haruto and Iris are heading towards his room to get a little frisky, but he notices a weird energy nearby. Since he cannot tell Iris to go back, they both enter the room, where Charlotte is waiting for her brother. Seeing a hottie by his side, her mind immediately jumps to the conclusion that Haruto is about to bang his girlfriend. However, Haruto quickly clarifies that Aratas is just a friend, a concept that seems to impress Charlotte even more. She muses that if he can make a friend so easily, getting lovers should be a breeze. According to Charlotte, Aratas will be his first wife, so she wants to become his second wife. Haruto dismisses it as childish fantasy, while Aratas is left to wonder if this is a normal conversation between siblings. Eventually, the girls introduce themselves, and they all sit down to start signing up for their classes. Haruto quickly gets bored and asks Charlotte to pick his schedule for him. She happily obliges, filling out his form in no time with a selection of difficult senior-level courses that she deems not too easy for him. Iris is surprised he doesn't even check her choices, but Haruto explains that he trusts Charlotte completely, a comment that makes his sister blush with pride. When Iris inquires about his goals at the academy, Charlotte puts on a mysterious air. She proudly explains that her brother's true purpose is far beyond mere academics, and that he has already transcended such mortal conventions. Her grand cryptic declarations leave Iris completely in awe of him. Haruto, realizing his sister is about to cause even more havoc, decides it's time for her to go. She says her goodbyes, and as she steps through the teleportation door, Haruto quickly covers Iris's eyes to prevent her from seeing his secret, leaving her with one more mystery about her strange new friend. The first day of classes arrives, and Haruto is already dreading it. Before he leaves, Charlotte gives him a hug for good luck, holding on for an uncomfortably long time. As he and Lisa step out of the dorm, they are greeted by an enthusiastic Iris. She already knows that Lisa is a dragon, but simply accepts it as a logical quirk of being Haruto's attendant. She can't believe Haruto was placed in the lowly Class C based on his exam, but confidently predicts he'll be promoted to Class A in no time. It turns out that Aratas is a Class A student, and she enters the room. The two watch her jiggling buttocks. Later, Haruto goes to his Class C, where all eyes are on him, since his reputation has preceded him. The professor explains that Class C is for the average student, but their performance on evaluations will determine if they move up or down. With this, the teacher announces a surprise test out of the blue. Haruto sees this as another golden opportunity to get expelled. However, the questions are shockingly easy, as they're concepts Charlotte had mastered in her first 6 months of study. Realizing a 0 would be too obvious, he aims for a respectable but unimpressive score of 60. What he fails to realize is that the average score for Class C is just 20 points. When his result is announced, Haruto's classmates and the professor are blown away by his genius. Before he can even process his mistake, the professor declares that he is immediately being promoted to Class A for his next lesson. His plan has once again failed in the most spectacular way possible. Entering the elite Class A classroom, he immediately spots both Iris and Laius. He tries to make a hasty retreat, but they drag him to a seat between them and proceed to argue over who gets to grab his sausage during class. Their bickering is cut short by the arrival of the professor, a strict-looking woman named Oratoria, who immediately lectures them for chatting. She has a particular dislike for Tieta's lab, and she warns Haruto and Iris that she will be giving them an especially hard time. The first lesson is on magical attributes. Oratoria calls Iris to the front to demonstrate, and the crystal ball reveals she possesses all attributes, a rare and impressive feat. However, her overall level is only 5, which Oratoria claims is pitifully low. The professor then explains the difference between main and secondary attributes, and asks the class why secondary attributes are so difficult to measure. Leia suggests it's due to proficiency, but Arata dismisses this as an outdated theory. Meanwhile, Haruto mutters to himself that it's because of hidden attributes. Hirata Warrior overhears him and demands that he explain his logic. Under pressure, Hirata describes a concept he'd only ever discussed with Charlotte, that each attribute has hidden sub-attributes, like enhancement for fire, that affect a person's magical aptitude in specific ways. Hirata Warrior is stunned. This theory is part of the latest highly classified research from a mysterious genius known only as Wise Owl, whose research papers have been revolutionizing modern magic. She can't understand how a student would know this, and her suspicion that Haruto might actually be the Wise Owl is palpable. Later, in Tieda's lab, Haruto's clone has taken over for the day, but their welcoming party is interrupted by a scream from the back room. They rush in to find David tied up on the floor like in a naughty bedroom scene. Tieda explains that he came to her begging for help with the magical vice, but he collapsed from fatigue while she was examining it. She sees him as a perfect research subject. Iris realizes the vice is made of attributeless magic, and Tieda confirms it must be ancient magic, as a modern spell wouldn't have lasted this long. The only question is who could cast it. To get an answer, she wakes David with a series of sharp slaps. He can only describe his attacker as a figure clad in black with a strange voice. This is all Tieda needs. She quickly turns to Haruto's clone, her eyes gleaming with suspicion. She points out that the ally of justice from Mangrave Gold's territory conveniently showed up in the capital at the exact same time he did. Tieda suspects he's hiding something far greater than just his knowledge of ancient magic. As she presses him with a threatening tone, Haruto's clone panics and mentally calls for help. In a flash, the real Haruto appears in his Shiva persona. He coolly tells Tieda that he is not related to Haruto and is only in the capital to punish evil. Tieda is thrilled to meet him, but is more interested in the fact that David is part of a real-life suspicious organization. Shiva confirms this is why he was targeted, then tells David he will remove the restraint the next morning if the duel is cancelled. As he turns to leave, Tieda traps him in a magical restraint, demanding he answer all her questions, even offering her body for one night in exchange for his knowledge. However, Haruto effortlessly breaks free, restrains her as payback, and only releases the tiny professor after she begs him to let her go to the toilet. Now the welcoming party finally resumes, but it's an awkward affair. Porcos, Tieda's long-suffering assistant, confides in Haruto about how he used to be her tutor, but she was such a genius that he had nothing to teach her. He laments that she abandoned a promising career in modern magic to chase the fruitless field of ancient magic. Meanwhile, a drunk Iris thanks Haruto for joining the lab, believing it's her best chance to get stronger before she passes out. Tieda then explains Aratus' situation. Her low level is likely permanent, so she's banking on ancient magic to find a breakthrough. As they all sleep off the party, David, seething with humiliation, summons his family's elite assassination squad. He gives them a simple order: neutralize Haruto and take a picture of his ding-dong for research purposes. He has no idea that the real Haruto is watching and recording his every move. Within minutes, the assassins surround the building, but their first operative smashes face first into an invisible barrier. Realizing the building is protected, they try to break it, but their weapons can't even scratch it. Suddenly, doors appear all over the building. The assassins proceed with caution, but they are picked off one by one like chickens, dragged inside by an unseen force. When the real Haruto finally reveals himself, the remaining assassins realize with horror that they have been attacking their own comrades, who were disguised by Haruto's magic. Their captain is sealed in an instant, and the entire squad is captured without a single casualty. With the assassins captured and his victory absolute, Haruto confronts David. He presents the terrified vice president with his entire captured assassination squad, still wrapped in magical restraints. As a final flourish, he projects a recording of the moment David himself gave the order to neutralize everyone in the lab. Faced with irrefutable proof, David still tries to deny it, but his denials are weak and pathetic. Meanwhile, Haruto explains that his previous punishment was clearly not enough, and asks if he'd like to experience true pain. Pushed to the absolute brink, David makes a desperate move and injects a strange substance from a syringe into his arm. His body immediately begins to contort and expand, transforming him into a gigantic, grotesque Nicki Minaj. Haruto can only watch this stupid little transformation. Just then, Charlotte's annoying little butt calls him and asks Haruto not to hurt David. Suddenly, the newly monstrous David lashes out, and a single punch sends Haruto flying out of the shattered window. Now he engages the beast, deciding to try a non-lethal approach. Haruto uses his barrier magic to create powerful restraints, locking down the monster's arms. But the creature has a horrifying trick up its sleeve. It intentionally discards its own captured limbs, which dissolve into dust before instantly regenerating a brand new pair. Haruto has no idea how to defeat this monster, but just then Charlotte shares her observation that the monster seemed to get a little bit smaller after it regenerated. The answer clicks in Haruto's mind. The monster must be consuming David's own mass and energy. He just needs to force it to regenerate multiple times. Praising Charlotte for her genius, Haruto prepares his final move. He summons a swirling vortex in the sky, from which emerges an arsenal of every kind of sword imaginable, along with a single solitary toy hammer. Suddenly, Haruto unleashes the storm of blades, which showers down on the monster, not to neutralize, but to slice away its overgrown flesh, forcing it to constantly shrink and regenerate. The monster is whittled down piece by piece until all that's left is a naked, unconscious, and human-sized David. At last, the toy hammer falls from the sky and bonks him gently on the head. Haruto thanks Charlotte for her invaluable help and tells her to go watch some Japanese corn videos. He then approaches the now human David, hoping to continue his interrogation, but the former vice president runs away on all fours like a frightened animal. Realizing he won't get any information out of him now, Haruto retrieves the spent syringe for later analysis. Exhausted, he faces his final task of the night, using his magic to repair the massive collateral damage to the research building before anyone wakes up. Later, as dawn breaks, Haruto's clone stands by the window, watching the sky. He tells the real Haruto that despite the chaos, he actually had fun spending the day with Iris and the others. They have both begun to realize that maybe they don't hate getting involved with other people anymore. While Haruto's school life reaches a new level of chaos, his sister's little organization is officially in motion. Frey and Lisa, having conducted their own investigation in the capital, report their findings to the group. They've confirmed the rumors. The king and queen are on bad terms, and the nobles are maneuvering for power in the ensuing vacuum. Johnny astutely connects Haruto's battle with David to this larger conspiracy. Charlotte, taking center stage, lays out her grand anime-fueled theory. David is a high-ranking member of a dark student council, which is merely a pawn for a massive evil organization that is trying to shake the country to its core. On the other hand, Haruto observes all of this through his surveillance magic. He knows his sister's plan is a work of complete fiction, but he also knows that an evil organization does exist, with his own mother at its center. He realizes he can't stop them right now, so the only thing he can do is watch over Charlotte and her agents. Despite all the chaos, Haruto finally found his true purpose to protect Charlotte and her friends, so that he can enjoy his peaceful and lonely life. If you want us to cover Season 2 of this anime, comment airbags below. Until then, subscribe, like, and share this video with all your friends.